Hello, I'm Maria and welcome back to my nook. In today's video, I want to show you my bookshelf, and I also want to reorganize it because lately I've acquired a few new books that have not found a place on my bookshelves yet, and I think I have to reorganize them in order to make space for the new books that I have acquired. Also, I've kind of been meaning to reorganize my bookshelf for months, honestly. I just kind of didn't get around to actually do it, and I didn't really know what exactly to do with my bookshelf. So now that I have all these books that need to find a place on my bookshelf, that just gives me more motivation to actually reorganize my bookshelf, you know? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my bookshelf first. I'm not going to go too much into detail about every single book because I have recently uploaded a video about my physical TBR, so all the books I own that I haven't read yet, in which I went through my bookshelf and like showed you all the books that I have read versus have not read. So if you want to see that, you can check out that video. But in this video, I'm just going to talk about my bookshelf organization a little more in general, and if you want to see the books that are on my shelf, you can always pause the video and read the titles, of course. So without any further ado, I am now going to show you a little before of my bookshelf. The first two rows of my bookshelf are fantasy books, so I've got some Leigh Bardugo right here. I've got some Olivia Blake here. I actually own a second book of Olivia Blake, which is the sequel to the Atlas 6, but I am actually currently reading that one, so it's not on the shelf. I have Cassandra Clare, Hafsa Faizal, lots of Ranger's Apprentice over here, and of course some decoration, a little plant, and some lights. And over here I've got my favorite fantasy series from my childhood, at least the first 6 books in the series. The 7th book, is behind all the other books in the quiet corner because the cover does not match and it was never released in these covers. So then I've also got a little decoration that I made myself for this series. It's a little fan art thingy. And I've got some Stephanie Garber over here and some more plants and obviously the lights. Oopsie. Continuing in the second row from left to right, we've got some Elizabeth Lim, Carrie Maniscalco, Erin Morgenstern, some Ransom Riggs, Patrick Rothfuss, and obviously Victoria Schwab, V.E. Schwab, and some decoration. These are like dried flowers in this glass thingy that I thought were really pretty, kind of. And I really like those. Moving on to the second half of the second row of my shelf, we've got some more V.E. Schwab, as you can see, and then we've got some Laini Taylor and Book of Lies by Terry, and Between Ink and Shadows by Melissa Wright. And that is it for all the fantasy books that have found a place on my shelf so far. In the first half of the third row of my shelf, we've got a lot of romance books and some random books. We've got Elena Armas, Maisie Eddings, lots of Ellie Hazelwood and Emily Henry, some Christina Lauren, and a lot of other, not a lot of, but some other authors of whom I only own a single book. And then over here we've got some more random books. These are 2 classics I had to read for school once. And these 2 books over here, these really tiny books, I think my mom gave them to me because she found them in a secondhand store or something. And for the second half of the third row, we've got mostly mystery thriller type of books. We've got one, or I've got one general fiction book over here, and then I've got the Inheritance game series, which is like mystery puzzle kind of thing. Then I've got the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, which is a YA thriller, and I've got another book by Holly Jackson and a thriller book. This is like a puzzle book where you're presented with like cases and evidence and you can puzzle that out. And then this right here is basically my little Sherlock nook, because I've got a lot of Sherlock related books. I've got the complete Sherlock Holmes, like all the stories. I've got some other editions of the Sherlock Holmes stories. I've got a graphic novel, other iterations of Sherlock Holmes. I've got an advent calendar and all that type of stuff, and like a pen and a bracelet that I got in London. Just my little Sherlock nook. There are actually other Sherlock themed things I own, but they didn't fit in here anymore. Now for the last row of my bookshelf, it's getting a little more random because these are coffee table books and like text books about like photography and drawing and London, and I've got dictionaries here and cookbooks and baking books, stuff like that. And then I've got books about biology and nature and stars. And I've got books about like film and script writing and philosophy, and one by Sigmund Freud about like dreams. And then I've got a book by Oscar Wilde, and I've got a book with poems in here. Then there's a memoir, a self-help book, and another memoir. Actually, I think these are sorted the wrong way. I don't know, these genres are kind of hard to sort if I'm being honest. And then I've got non-fiction science books, mainly by Randall Munro. And over here I've got What If 2 by Randall Munro and another non-fiction science-y book by Alan Wiseman, The World Without Us. And then, because those are science books, I put the only 3 science fiction books I own right here. But to be fair, they probably rather belong with the fiction fantasy books. Then over here I've got my bookmarks that I have acquired over time, basically. And then now this is an escape room game for at home that you can play like once. But I haven't been able to play it with friends yet, because obviously I want to play it with friends and not alone. This is Sherlock themed. It's a game where there's like lots of cards inside, and on each card there's some case, some evidence, some riddle, some puzzle that you can do. And this is also Sherlock themed. Another puzzle thingy with like cards. And then last but definitely not least, I've got all the books here. Oh my god, can I hold up this entire stack without it falling over? All the books that have not found a home on my shelf yet. And I will hopefully find a home for them. I have to find a home for them today. And there it fell. Oh, it fell again. So I think what I'm going to do now is first up take all the decoration off my shelves, and because I'm probably not going to take all the books off my shelves and then put them back on in a different order, I will rather take the order that I already have and only change a few things about that. I'll probably start doing that, but I'll start with the decorations. Okay, I think I am done with reorganizing my shelves, but honestly, it's obviously subject to change all the time because I might look at this shelf for like 3 days and then think, I think I'm not quite content with this, and then I'll rearrange it again. And B, I'll absolutely, definitely acquire new books in the future. For one, I know that I'm going to acquire one more book in the Veronica Speedwell series because there is one more book out at the moment. Just couldn't buy it yet. And I'm also planning on buying another edition of This Savage Song, for example. The Fragile Threads of Power by Byyee is coming out very, very soon, and I've also ordered a special edition of that one. So those will have to find a spot on this shelf. Another romance book by Ellie Hazelwood is coming out in November, so that one will have to find a spot on the shelf. The shelf will change all the time in small ways, you know, but for now I think I'm quite content with it, and I'm gonna show you the things that I've changed. A lot of things have stayed fairly the same, so I'm gonna try to keep it brief. So for one, this first row of fantasy books stayed mostly the same, except that I added 2 more Ranger's Apprentice books that I now own to my Ranger's Apprentice series. And with that, the Stephanie Garber books that I had over here had to move down here, and I had to change how I'm displaying them. And I've also changed which plants I'm displaying. Like I've got one of my small plants over there, and then for this pot over here I actually do have a plant as well, well, a fake plant. But it's not because I'm incapable of taking care of plants. Most of the plants you will see in my apartment are fake plants. It's just because my current living situation and like my living habits aren't really beneficial for plants to survive. Let's just put it that way. So I'm opting for fake plants because those literally can't die and I can still have some greenery on my shelves and in my apartment, you know? Moving on. As I've already said, I had to move my Stephanie Garber books down here and had to change the way I'm displaying them. I also had to change the way I'm displaying my Elizabeth Lim books, and I don't think you can see it, but Kingdom of the Wicked is squeezed in here as well. These have stayed mostly the same. I even kept the decoration here, even though there was less space, but like, it still works, right? And then this, all of this has stayed exactly the same. So let's move on to the next rows because those have changed a little more. The third row still starts with romance books. At first, the first one over there, Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, is actually a fantasy historical kind of romance. So I thought that one would be the perfect way to overlap my fantasy books with the romance books, especially because I've got a historical romance series, the Veronica Speedwell series. So it's like fantasy books, then fantasy historical romance, then historical romance, and then I've got my contemporary romance books over here with a plant. And then moving on over here, I've got all the thriller, mystery, YA thriller type of books. And down here I've now got my 3 sci-fi books. I know I said I would maybe put them with my fantasy books, but to be honest I didn't really know where to put them with my fantasy books because of space and also because of the spines, because most of my fantasy books are they have rather dark spines, and those spines are so bright compared to my fantasy books. So I don't know, it just didn't really work. And then I've got my 2 general literary fiction books, my 2 classics, this Oscar Wilde book. I've got some poetry, then this is a memoir, and over here another memoir and a self-help book. This is almost a bit of a miscellaneous type of shelf because these are all genres that I don't have enough books of to actually have a full nook like this or a full row. So they just kind of all went together because I had to put them somewhere, you know, that type of situation. And then over here I have non-fiction science-ish books. So these are my like books about nature, the human body, stars. These are my film books, philosophy, the Sigmund Freud book and the Randall Munro books, and the other non-fiction book, The World Without Us. And then over here I've also got this little plant, which is basically the second plant to the one I've got up there with my fantasy books. Got my bookmarks over here, and then these games over here, which now I'm actually a little more happy with because now I've got my Sherlock games over here and my Sherlock Nook over here. This one has basically stayed the same. I just moved it from here to here. And then last but not least, we have my even more miscellaneous books than these were. Like, these are just miscellaneous because I don't have enough books from the same genre, but these are actually miscellaneous. I've talked about these before. These are just all sorts of books, and I moved them further down because they're that random, you know? I've also got this puzzle over here because I don't know where to put it, and I have the space right here. Before I wrap up this video, I just remembered that I forgot to finish what I had been trying to say about that pot up there on the top right corner of my bookshelf, where I said I actually do have a plant for that, a fake plant. It's just that I have one of those like hanging plants that like hangs down from the pot, but the problem is that the plant is so heavy that it keeps falling out of the pot, and I've tried securing it with like decorative stone kind of stuff. I've tried securing it with decorative moss stuff, but nothing seems to work. It just literally flips out. At one point it really did like just flip out and upended all that moss and all those stones on my carpet because it just catapulted out basically, and then I gave up for now. But I really do want to put that hanging plant in there because I'm imagining it to like hang down on the side of my shelf, you know, that sort of thing. I really hope I can figure it out at some point. Okay, so this is an overview of what my entire shelf looks like now. I'm filming this a couple of days later right now, just because I realized it might be nice to get a full overview of what my shelf looks like now. And by the way, yes, I did figure out this whole plant situation right here. That's what I was talking about. I figured it out with the help of my mom and my grandma, and now that plant is hanging down from my shelf in that little pot, and I really love it. No, I like it so far. I think I am going to adjust and tweak it a little bit here and there over time, but for now, I really like it. And I am still really happy with my bookshelves, but I do have to add books to it very soon actually, so I'll see how I will manage that. But this is what it looks like now. And that is it for today's bookshelf tour reorganizing video. I really hope you guys have enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, and maybe let me know down in the comments, how do you sort your bookshelves? I'd really love to know. And if you don't want to tell me that, you can tell me anything else you want to tell me. Otherwise, I will see you guys somewhere else on the internet or in my next video. Bye!